It's elites who are fanning these embers of war and civil strife, says former Deputy Governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, Obadiah Mailafia. And Serap is urging President Buhari to redirect proposed funds for monitoring WhatsApp to pay salaries of striking resident doctors. Well, this is Plus Politics, and I am Mary Ann Okon. The former CBN Deputy Governor Obadiah Mailafia has said the ordinary people in the country have not or do not have issues with each other, adding that despite the challenges, citizens still find ways to remain united. In his words, he said, "We're enmeshed in so many ways. You can't take that away from us. But today, we face huge problems. In spite of those huge problems, the underlying currents of unity are still there." Well, joining us to discuss this is the former CBN Deputy Governor, Obadiah Mailafia. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you so very much, Marianne. Lovely to see you, and thank you for having me.
Great, always a pleasure. It's interesting that here we are again talking about the same issues that we discussed sometime early this year, and we're here again in August talking about the same thing. For many, some would think that we are not really making any progress and that we're running around in circles. But what made you decide to look at things from this perspective? Because many have blamed government, many have blamed politicians, but you're saying that it's all of them put together that are fanning the embers of the insecurity and the disintegration that we're facing right now in the country.
Yes, Marianne, I was constrained to say this after many years of observing and analyzing what is happening in our country and in huge parts of Africa and the rest of the developing world. My studies and analyses, as well as observations, have led me to the conclusion that for ordinary people, the daily struggles of life for bread and butter, to take care of themselves, to take care of their families, these are the things that really, really worry them, not issues of one ethnic group versus another ethnic group, or one religious group against another religious group. Ordinary people are not like that. And from my ancestral hometown to everywhere I've lived and traveled in this country, I see that the ordinary people live together more or less very peacefully. They go to the same markets. They are all traders in the same areas. They're same artisanal and craftsmen and craftswomen working together, struggling to eke out a living. So, but a lot of these issues like wars, insurgencies, these are agendas that are set by the power elites. There is a great Italian economist and sociologist by the name of Roberto Michels. And he propounded the theory of the iron law of oligarchy. And the iron law of oligarchy states that in every society, those who ultimately call the shots are the elites. You have the political elites, the economic elites, the cultural elites, and even the religious elites and military elites, whichever group, that are the higher echelons. And yet another Italian philosopher by the name of Antonio Gramsci. He was a Marxist communist philosopher, and he wrote copious honestly about what you call hegemony, that there are always elites who control the destinies of nations. If they want a war for their collective interest, they will create a war for their collective interest. And if they want things to be better, and when they come together, things can be better. But and they're the ones that manipulate the ordinary people. So I've observed that to be very true of Nigeria today.
But I'm curious because we obviously have created an avenue for or opportunities or loopholes for these people to capitalize on. Nigeria and Nigerians have always had the underlying issues of differences, especially ethnic differences and religious differences, and whether we like it or not, the people, the elites that you're making reference to, have taken advantage of the fact that we're divided on these, fronts, and that's what, according to you, they're taking advantage of. If we as a people did not allow these divisions to be so obvious, we probably wouldn't have these so-called elites taking advantage of it. I mean, because have you ever met a Nigerian and you ask them, are you Nigerian? They would say, oh, I'm Igbo, I'm Yoruba, I'm this. We never really, prioritize the fact that we're Nigerians first. We always talk about the ethnic groups that we come from. We always hear people ask you, in a place, are you an indigene or you're not an indigene? And we have somewhat, I'm not making a case for the government or these elites, but we have also somewhat integrated it into our social lives and our, corporate lives. You go to a place and you're trying to do certain things. It's the people in those areas that are given the opportunity first before any other person. Even if you've lived there all your life, as long as you're not an indigene, you're not given priority. So, of course, we are part of the problem. Can we really say that we the ordinary people, are not playing into the hands of these so-called elites?
Well, that's one way of looking at it. And I think you're partially right. But are we divided or are we diverse? My theory is that the ordinary people, they are not thinking of any heavy theological differences between one community or the other. And they are not thinking of any ideological or big political interests that will separate, one person from the other. Their basic concerns are down to earth, where they can live safely, daily bread, see their lives progress, guarantee a future for their children. These are their concerns. It is the elites that are thinking about, if you don't come and worship my God, I'm going to deal with you and your God, that sort of thing. And these embers, by and large, fueled by elites. And the truth of the matter is that they have the wherewithal to manipulate the poor people. Antonio Gramsci called it hegemonia. That is to have control and to have supremacy. And they do it through the power of capital, through the power of money. They do it through religion, the religious elites. In consolidating their power and influence, they use it. They use religion as an instrument of mobilization.
So are you saying that Boko Haram, for example, we've been dealing with Boko Haram for almost a decade. I'm trying to understand, do you think that it's elites that have somewhat fueled this war or this insurgents? Because don't forget, the reason for Boko Haram emerging in the first place is that they were against Western education. I'm trying to tie all of this to, what you're saying, the hegemony, the fact that, the common man just wants peace, wants access to the basic amenities and the basic, needs of life. In the case of Boko Haram, fighting these people, what role does the elite have to play in it? In terms of banditry, the banditry that we're experiencing today and how it has metamorphosed into banditry and abductions. We can also talk about the religious crisis that have been happening over the years in certain parts of the north. Is that also fueled by elites, religious elites maybe, and ethnic elites?
I would think so. Now, Marianne, even in the case of, the Boko Haram people, their leader, Mohammed Yusuf, was a university graduate. He came from a middle-class family. Many of his key people had master's degrees, and they came from upper-class families. The same thing with those who led the attack on September 11 attacks on the Twin Towers in the United States. Believe you me or not, those guys came from upper-class families. Even the father of Osama bin Laden was a very, very wealthy man. He was a billionaire. His father was a billionaire. He was well educated. He used to spend summer holidays at Oxford. He read engineering. Zahawiri was a surgeon, very qualified surgeon from an upper-class family in Egypt. Many of them were from upper-class families. They didn't lack anything. Now, they would turn around and say Western education is bad when they themselves had postgraduate studies. Their families, their friends had postgraduate studies. They're very well educated. And then they will now spread the propaganda that Western education is haram. Now, look at it, that in the medieval world, the Arabs were the most educated people on earth. Even algebra was invented by a Muslim Arab by the name of Al-Jabr. Some of the greatest scientists and mathematicians were Muslim Arabs. Ibn Sina, Ibn Khaldun, Al-Farabi, and a whole lot of them. They actually reintroduced Greek philosophy, Plato and Aristotle, to Europe. That was actually the Dark Ages. And after that illustrious history, some miscreants who don't know even Islam, they don't even understand Islam, are now saying that Western education is haram. They don't even know what they're talking about. If you look at the long history, intellectual history of the Muslim world, they were highly advanced. So these elites, for whatever reason, are able to manipulate people and mobilize them for their own grand designs. How much does an AK cost these days? I'm told that it costs anything from 300 to 500,000. A poor man, ill-educated, young man, unemployed, he's recruited. Where does he get the money to purchase such a weapon that is very expensive? He can't earn that money in a year of his life. He couldn't possibly earn it. Now he's gone gung-ho with weapons. Who is giving him these weapons and these endless rounds of munitions? Who is financing that? Somebody somewhere must be doing that. So that is, and I think it is common sense. I mean, history and human experience show that all these things are often manipulations by highly privileged elites.
So when we say highly privileged elites, I mean, you fall in that category of very privileged people, and you have served in very high capacities, and you seem to be a statesman where you come from. Now, if you do not fall in the category of those who are fanning the embers, who are those who are also trying to educate? Because if you have people on one side who are saying, kill them, slaughter them, burn them, there has to also be people on the other side trying to speak some form of truth and help people to see reason. Where are the people who are like you, who should be speaking truth to power and letting people see reason as to why these embers should not be fanned? Because don't forget, as we are speaking right now, there are ethnic tensions, whether we like it or not. If you go to the southeast, they're asking for secession. And now we have the Yoruba nation. And don't forget, these non-state actors who have also cropped up as a result of the fact that certain issues were left to linger are now in courts. They're having their day in courts. and many have also criticized the fact that government is even paying attention to these non-state actors and giving them, attention. But where are those who are speaking against what is happening? Because we seem to see more and more of these people crop up as we speak. There was a crisis in Plateau State. It's the biggest story. As we speak, more people have been abducted. Zamfara is still receiving so-called repentant members of Boko Haram. I mean, the numbers these days, when numbers hit our screens, they're just numbers. We no longer feel that these are human beings, and it seems like we no longer value these lives. So really, who are the people who are not just speaking truth to power because of political reasons, but trying to make other people, especially the led, understand that this could be a play or a strategy from those on the other side?
Well, very true, Marianne. I mean, you're very right. And it's a very important question. There aren't many people who are speaking at all. And those of us who choose, who make the existential choice of speaking out, are actually seen as the bad guys, And you see, in the civilized world, the intelligentsia, the very, very rich people, they may not want to come up front, but behind the scenes, they actually call the shots because they mobilize the right leaders to go forward. They finance the right leaders because it's in their self-interest that the economy goes well. They do that. But look at our billionaires today. They are not talking. If you like, wipe out the whole country, they're not going to talk. Instead, they are moving their assets outside the country quietly. They're moving their assets. They are getting their air tickets ready and getting their private jets ready. In case Nigeria implodes, they're going to take the next flight. Off they go. It is very immoral, and it is very irresponsible. These are the kind of people we're having. And on Plateau, you are very right. As we are speaking, even today, now, this moment, there is very serious tension in Jos. Because for 2 weeks, they were systematically killing the Irigwe people, the Miango people. A few days ago, they killed over 100 of them. Now, apparently yesterday, when there was going to be a mass burial, they saw a busload together with an ambulance in front, taking a route that was not the normal route to go. If you are coming to Ondo or you're going anywhere, you take the normal route that passes through Jos City. But they took a route that went through that Miango side that is normally more or less like a bush path. So the youth waylaid the vehicle when they are preparing to go and bury over 100 of their people that nobody has shown any sympathy for. Then this busload comes, and they checked the ambulance that was with the busload and found it was full of very dangerous weapons. And, hula baloo broke out, and the people sadly, the people in the bus were brutally murdered. I don't condone that. I think it is evil, and it is condemnable. But the propaganda going on now is that these youths just waylaid a bus coming from Bauchi and in a cold-blooded fashion killed everybody on it. That again is a very dangerous and destructive lie.
But does this not paint a picture of what we've been talking about since the beginning of this conversation? The lack of clarity and power in terms of our governance, the loopholes that have been created by government. Now we have a president who has tried to run for office several times, if not 4, continuously trying to be president of this country. And one would think that if Mr. President was trying so many times to be president, he had an idea of what the country needed and how to give it or get it to the people. But now we have Mr. President here, and he's got maybe just barely 2 years for his second tenure to wrap. And we're yet to see the president deal with the major issues that he put out as part of his campaign, which one was security. Secondly, he talked about giving us employment. And thirdly, to fight corruption. What is the issue? What do you think as a person, as an elder statesman, as a person who's been studying governors that have come and gone, and of course you have been experiencing all that's happening in the northern parts of this country. What exactly do you think is the challenge of Nigeria's leadership, especially the presidency?
You know, the presidency is the highest magistracy of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. And as they say about the papacy, any cardinal who badly wants to become pope should never be appointed to that position, because his motives must be very questionable. If he loves it so much, because being pope should be something that should be held in great awe. And people should not have an inordinate ambition for it. By going 4 times plus, you know, wanting to be president, some people say, okay, they gave him about the benefit of the doubt. But from the very beginning, people say, no, this is very bad news. But some people say, well, you know, he wants it so badly. Perhaps he has a good motive. But it turns out that he had, number one, he had nothing to offer the country. He was a very sick man. With all sympathies, you know, people can't help being sick. But he had no preparation for that office. He lacked the intellectual capacity for it. He lacked the moral capacity for it. And should never have been.
But the president won the first time, and he won again the second time. So the question is, or maybe it's the joke on us, because we the people allowed for the president to come twice. And you're saying all of these things, that he's incapable, he's a sick man, he's this and that. But he has been given 2 terms in this country. Is the joke on us?
Yeah, no, it's a big joke on us. And the last election was not really an election. It was a big scam. It's a big electoral scam, you know. It was not a real election.
What does that mean? People came out and voted, even though there was some drop in the numbers. The people came out and casted their vote. So when you say it was a big scam, what does that mean?
There were goats and sheep and dogs that were involved in the elections, you know. People brought out
How so?
all sorts of things. Yeah, I'm talking metaphorically now. So it was just a big scam. And too many issues. I don't want to open a can of worms, but it was totally illegitimate. So he's there. And look, even in 2015, Maria, let me be very honest with you. Nigerians were prepared to give him power to avoid civil war because they had amassed massive weapons ready for a civil war. They had shipped in thousands.
When you say they, who's they?
Whoever they are, that the coalition that are in power right now, they have shipped in lots of foreigners and armed them. They were ready. He said the government would be ungovernable. He said it, you know. I have nothing against him personally. I used to know him when I was a young man in National Institute for Strategic Studies, Guru. He was GOC of Rukuba Barracks. He used to come and play sports with us. He was a nice gentleman. But the Buhari of that time is totally different from, you know, this stranger I'm seeing now. Total stranger, in my view, that has no love for Nigeria. He has no love for the youth of this country. He doesn't engage one-on-one with our people. He doesn't engage one-on-one with our women groups, with our youth groups, with the intelligentsia. They have an agenda. I'm seeing some strange black flags around some ministries, even today.
You're making very hefty allegations here that we really need to prove. When you say you see black flags, what black flags are you talking about?
No, I've seen some black flags around. You know, it's as if we have 2 countries. We have 2 countries in this country. These are not heavy allegations. I can show you, I can send you pictures of them that I've seen. They've been sent to me. I will send them to you. You can see them. What does that mean? I don't know what that means. It means we have different countries, or some people are planning to have a country of their own already, and they're taking us for a big ride. These issues concern some of us. See, if you are a leader, Marianne, if you were president today, you will engage with groups of people. You will talk one-on-one with them. You will engage with the youths. You will engage with women's groups. You will engage with all sorts of groups. You will show yourself that you have love for your people.
So you're saying that the president is, or you're implying that the president is deliberately ignoring the hues, the cries, the calls of Nigerians, and all of the things that are happening to us. Because again, let's not forget, even the backyard of Mr. President is facing some form of abductions here and there. There have been disturbances even in Katsina. Nobody is really left out on all of this. The country seems to be at a boiling point. Let's not even go into the economy of the country and the recent increase in taxes. The average person who's trying to, make ends meet is also hit with this, taxes. The Ministry of Works has also said that they're going to start tolling all over again. Licenses, the prices of licenses have gone up. Literally, the cost of living is going higher and higher every day, and the purchasing power of the average Nigerian is going low. The average Nigerian is unable to sleep with his eyes closed because he's not sure who's going to be breaking down his or her door. I mean, I could sit here all day and tell you I give you a list of all the problems that we're facing under this government, and you're telling me that the government has an agenda. How does this help us as a people? We still have 2 years to go under this presidency. What is the future for Nigeria? We're all talking about Afghanistan. The president is even one of those who's talking about it. I'd like to even quote him directly. He says, Africa is the new front line for global militancy. And I'm trying to understand what that means. When he was talking about Afghanistan, we were all watching on TV, but it did start somewhere. How do we stop ourselves and our country from going into that same kind of situation if we're not dealing with it now?
Well, I think you have explained it in detail, and your allegations, Marianne, are as heavy as mine. If you call mine allegations, they're not allegations.
Well, I was just stating fact as to all the things that we're going through as Nigerians, as a country. But then right. We do have a leader, and so I'm asking, how do we not also disintegrate to a position to the position where Afghanistan is? I mean, I hear Nigerians saying, God forbid, but we started somewhere. Look, so what do we do? Where do we go from here? Look.
It can easily happen in Nigeria. That's the truth of the matter. And we're reaching that very dangerous threshold already. Very, very dangerous threshold. Look, if you were president, Marianne, and you are from Calabar, right?
Yes, I'm from Cross River.
And Cross River. And then you are in Abuja, and then, your home area is on fire. It doesn't reflect well on you, however you look at it, because charity must begin at home. And if you are there, well ensconced in Abuja, you are gallivanting the world, having conferences here and so on. And then Cross River, your home area in Cross River is being invaded and people are being killed, and then you are sitting comfortably. What does that reflect nicely on you? I don't think so. I don't think so at all. And Afghanistan is not surprising. I've been following the career of the president of Afghanistan. He's called Dr. Ashraf Ghani, a fantastic intellectual. He was a professor of anthropology, I think at Columbia University. A very educated, man, very cosmopolitan man. And he did so well for Afghanistan. America pumped in so much money. But you see, a philosopher said that an unarmed prophet is already a defeated prophet. If you have a vision and you're a leader, you must arm yourself. You must speak softly, but carry a big stick. He spoke big, but he had absolutely nothing on him. And so they just simply came and took over. It is not militancy. That is a mild word. It is global jihad. They are on a race to capture the whole world. And Africa, Nigeria is one of their biggest targets.
So what do we do going forward? In closing, what do we do? Because we seem to be, you know, we talk a lot about this, but we're not seeing a lot of action as to changing the narrative. And the numbers of people that are killed every day, that are abducted every day, it's not going down. The numbers are increasing. What do we do?
In fact, let me give you even some statistics. You know, I don't know whether you saw this. A few weeks ago, UNICEF came out to announce that 345,000 children have been killed in the Northeast over the past 12 years. 345,000 children. This is from UNICEF, a UN agency. So you ask yourself, if 345,000 children were killed in the Northeast alone, how many of them were killed in the rest of the country? And then apart from the children, how many adults, how many women, men, youth, and elderly were killed? They probably, because in a war, people don't directly attack children, except some very insane people. So if 345,000 children have died, you could easily double the number for adults. So that means that, honestly speaking, we are heading towards a genocide involving almost 1 million people in our country. Now is the time for our people, those who love Nigeria, to stand up and be counted. I belong to the Martin Luther King School of Thought. I don't believe in violence, but I believe in the moral force of the human spirit. We can stand up to evil and we will conquer it. It's not that Nigerians are not hungry enough for freedom. We are not hungry enough for justice. The day we are, who are these people? They can't raise their head. Okay. And in any case, they are going to go down in the annals of human infamy and shame and ignominy because of their wickedness and their evil. That is the truth of the matter.
Okay, well, Obadiah Melafia is a former Deputy Governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria and an elder statesman. Thank you very much for speaking with us. We appreciate it.
Thank you so very much.
All right.
Great nation, good people.
All right. Well, thank you all for staying with us. We'll take a short break now, and when we return, Serap is warning President Buhari to make resident doctors a priority over monitoring of WhatsApp. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Hello and welcome. It's Nimasa This Week, the voice of maritime. Nimasa This Week is brought to you by the Nigerian Maritime Administration and Safety Agency. Statutorily mandated to ensure that there's regulation and promotion of matters affecting our waters. NIMASA bears responsibility for search and rescue, shipping development, and ship registration.
NIMASA This Week, the voice of maritime, showing on this channel.
The Socio-Economic Rights and Accountability Project has urged President Muhammadu Buhari to urgently redirect the proposed spending of 4.8 billion naira of public money to monitor WhatsApp messages, phone calls and text messages of Nigerians and other people to pay some of the salaries of striking resident doctors. Well, joining us to discuss this is SERAP Deputy Director Kolawole Oluwadare. Thank you very much for joining us, Mr. Oluwadare.
Thank you very much for having me.
Great. This is really the resident doctors' strike and the issues that are bedeviling the health sector seems to be a very big, in fact, a major front burner issue, whether it's the striking doctors or the fact that these doctors have to deal with COVID-19 and you know, the fact that they're being paid a meager amount of money as hazard allowance. Now, many have spoken about, in fact, put them side by side with members of the National Assembly who have been receiving newspaper allowances and hardship allowances. And these are doctors who care for Nigerians who work in the harshest of conditions to take care of our sick people. And all they're asking for is a payment or an agreement that government had made for them to redeem that agreement. But now we hear that the government is taking them to court. Why did SERAP decide to, you know, make this warning, or rather issue this warning to the presidency?
Thank you very much. You should understand that what you call a warning is it's contained in an open letter that the SERAP had written to President Muhammadu Buhari, asking him to fulfill his constitutional duties and perform his role as the president of Nigeria. As you rightly mentioned, the issue is much more important, particularly in view of the threat of COVID-19 and what with the devastation we've seen it do to other countries and what might be coming in Nigeria. And this is against the background of the agreement that the striking doctors have claimed that government has signed, that government has refused to fulfill. And it would seem that this is not fulfilling the agreement on the part of the government, but more be about paucity of funds. And we've seen just last month that the president signing the supplementary budget of over 900 billion naira. And so the question is it that the government does not have funds to take care of striking doctors, particularly in view of the threat of COVID-19? And then this state government has budgeted over 4 billion naira to what is called, what is a better term, that's eavesdropping spending, permitting the National Security Agency to spend over 4 billion naira to intercept or listen in, as you may call it, to WhatsApp messages and other private communications of Nigerians. It is just a case of misplaced priority, particularly given the fact that these actions, if these funds are used for what it was budgeted, it is going to be a breach of the fundamental rights of Nigerians to privacy, which of course is guaranteed by Section 44 of the Constitution. So the question which we ought to ask, these 4 billion, is this the best way we can spend those funds in view of striking doctors, in view of the state of our primary health care and our health centers generally? I think the answer is a no.
I mean, you literally jumped the gun, but I will come back to that. I'll put a pin on that one, because I want to talk about the legality of, you know, eavesdropping on Nigerians. But let's stay on the resident doctors. We all know that we're fighting a pandemic, a very deadly one, by the way. And the doctors cannot say because there's a pandemic, so they would not work. Of course, they have to work and they have to deal with this. So this is the case that they're making. But the latest about this resident doctors who are striking, who have refused to budge, by the way, is that the government is taking them to court. Can you explain to us why the federal government would be taking its own resident doctors, the doctors who are working, again, I would like to re-emphasize, under the worst conditions? I have been to 3 different university teaching hospitals where touchlights were being used to sometimes conduct surgeries because there is no diesel in the generator or there's no light in the hospital. I have seen cases where I had a sick parent and I had to take that parent to the hospital. I had to buy everything down to the scissors and the lint and the gloves that the nurse was going to wear. So why would the government be taking these doctors to court if they're asking for something that is deserving of them?
Thank you. You painted the factual situation that operates in Nigeria hospitals in the health sector in Nigeria presently. So the morality of the government action going to court can be said not to be right if you look at it. Of course, the law permits the government also as an organ of state to approach the National Industrial Court that has jurisdiction to entertain type of that of this matter. So it's not about the legality of it, but about the rightness of it, particularly at this time. And like I mentioned, why is the government going to court? I've not seen the court papers filed by the government, but I would like to know what is their grounds for the striking doctors. Are they saying they did not try to sign an agreement with the striking doctors? Are they saying there are no funds to fulfill the agreement they signed some couple of months ago? And I would be most interested in to see that. But really, I would struggle to see any justification that government say or do to show why they have to meet on an agreement to pay the striking doctors. And these are doctors who have put their life on the line to battle COVID-19 and to rescue Nigerians, by the way. And the doctors are claiming that they are being paid for with 6 months salary in some states. And that is yet to be paid. So it will be interesting to see the case that the federal government is making at the National Industrial Court. But really, given the situation that Nigeria is in presently, I don't think that it is the right thing for the federal government to do. At best, they should fulfill the obligations they signed with striking doctors. Let the doctors get back to work. Commit to redefining and reworking the health sector. And I'm sure all the Nigerians will better, including those in government themselves.
So you're saying that this is a case of it's a case of morality, or rather rightness and legality. So the government is well within their rights to take these doctors to court. But the basis of this conversation, as we all know, is the fact that there was an agreement that was signed but was reneged upon. So if government has now taken these doctors to court, I'm not saying that you should preempt anything, that is in court. But how much grounds in terms of legality do they have on these resident doctors? And it's not just one hospital. We have resident doctors across the country. And I also want to bring in the no work, no pay, line that the government always pushes when people go on strike. Under any government, whether it's a democratic government, especially a democratic government, don't people have a right to go on strike if they are striking for the right, the right reasons? And again, could we also say that these doctors are being a bit selfish, knowing that the hospitals can't really do without resident doctors?
Thank you very much. The law preserves the right of workers to strike as a legitimate and legal means of pressing on their demands. And that is why it will be very interesting to see the court papers filed by the federal government and even the legal arguments or the factual circumstances that they placed before the National Industrial Court for the court to decide over this matter. I would struggle to see the morality or the rightness of whatever claims the government would have, particularly against the backdrop of the agreement they've signed with the two. And so I don't have access to the court papers. I've not seen the argument in court and what is the case of the government. But like I mentioned, I would struggle to see the rightness of such actions by the government. The no work, no pay really, to me, it sounds like the bullying, the striking doctors who have gone on strike legitimately. The Trade Disputes Act and then the Constitution guarantees the right of workers to go on strike as a way of pressing on the demands. They've not done anything unlawful. And I'm very much hopeful that the National Industrial Court decided over this matter and in determining the issues will render substantial justice and decide the case in favor of the striking doctors and order the federal government, whatever their case will be before the court, to fulfill the agreements they signed with the striking doctors and even go further to make sure that the welfare of the doctors are paramount, and not only these striking doctors, the resident doctors in this instance, but all health workers in general.
I'm interested. I would really like to have a conversation with the Minister of Health, Mr. Hanere, because this is his constituency, and he also sits on that presidential committee on COVID. We're dealing with a Delta variant in this case. And I'm wondering, why is it so difficult for government to come to the table and have an agreement, stick to it, so that our doctors can go back to the hospitals and deal with this Delta variant and keep people safe? Again, the Minister of Labour, Dr. Chris Ngige, had spoken some time ago saying that doctors should not should not be running abroad to, for greener pastures, because he made a very funny statement about, hazard allowance. But we see many doctors fleeing the country because of, the harsh situations and the conditions that they have to work under. At this rate, are we going to have more people want to go into this medical field or study and become resident doctors or any kind of medical experts in Nigeria if this is how the government is treating those who are already in the system?
Of course, the answer is obvious. Nobody wants to go to this kind of a business or venture or call it a profession with the treatment that Nigerian government is making out to doctors. But we should all understand that this is not only the doctors, in that it affects perhaps every sphere of endeavor in Nigeria. And that shows the insensitivity of government to the plight of Nigerians, the lack of commitment to socioeconomic rights of Nigerians. We are facing this is a Delta variant, and we've seen government. What they said more shows that it's more of lip service to fighting COVID-19 and all the challenges that we have in the health sector. What we would expect government to do right now is to ensure that everyone in the health sector, the workers in the sector, are well taken care of. And we are not only talking of their pay in the current expenditure, we're talking of capital expenditure, having the basics, we're talking of PPEs, having the right infrastructure to even attend to Nigerians. It's really sad that the Nigerian government will be playing this game at this very important and this dicey moment in fighting the pandemic. And I hope this is resolved very soon in the interest of Nigerians. Not only in the interest of doctors, but also Nigerians who will need this medical attention, if not for COVID-19, for other ailments that are still with us in Nigeria.
Before I let you go, I did put a pin on something. Let's go back to the WhatsApp situation. 4.8 billion, that's a lot of money to be eavesdropping. And the word eavesdropping or listening in doesn't necessarily sound legal to me. And you're a lawyer. Explain to us how this would be legal. Let's not forget that we still have the Twitter ban hanging over our heads, even though the government, the AGF had gone on the record to say that Nigerians have not been stopped from using Twitter. I still do not understand what he meant by that. But here we are talking about monitoring WhatsApp messages, which also has attached to it people's personal phone numbers and text messages. Explain to me how this is going to work.
For the record, the Attorney General is simply stating the law following the judgment of the court. There's another of the ECOWAS court obtained by Serap and over 100 Nigerians, refraining the Nigerian government from taking any step either arresting, harassing, or prosecuting anyone that uses Twitter. And again, what we've seen with this executive bill and the accent to the bill by the president shows this administration's commitment to fighting freedom of expression. That is the only way to look at it, and that is the fact. And to answer your question directly, there is no way either this appropriation or the funds, the expenditure can be legal. It's clearly unlawful. Section 44 of the Constitution clearly guarantees the right of all Nigerians to privacy. And that privacy includes the privacy to not only own a phone, but to the contents of those phones, to have secure conversations with anyone you like. You are not breaking the law. And so what the government is doing is clearly against the law. They are marking over 4 billion there. So you can imagine what that could do in the health sector. And I'm sure if that is diverted, committed to paying the striking doctors, it would offset, if not all of their demands, and able to provide infrastructure for the hospitals. And this is the same government that breaks the provisions of the law. To think that the National Health Act 2014 provides that there should be minimum 1% of the considerable revenue fund that should be committed to the health sector. And 10% of that fund is meant to be used to pay salaries, human resources in the health sector. And we have this government, a supplemental budget for that matter, which is extra to what we have presently in 2020. That's over 983 billion there. Taking 4 billion to breach the right of privacy of Nigerians. It is so sad. And this again is a consistent move by what we've seen in this administration to infringe on the right of expression of Nigerians. And it is important to know in this instance, if the NSA has this power and they spend this money at the Fed, they will. It will not only breach the right of freedom of expression, but also it is not only breach the right of freedom of privacy, rather, it will breach the right of freedom of expression because it means all your conversations, all everything on your phone, your WhatsApp is quite open to government, and this is government that we've seen more often than not breaches the order of court, acts.
Oh my goodness!
And so this is clearly.
Well, I think we're losing you because the connection is going bad. But Kolawole Oluwadare is the Deputy Director of SERAP. Thank you so much for speaking with us. I'm hoping that we can have you back here to talk more on this issue of the WhatsApp monitoring from a legal angle. But thank you for speaking with us. Well, we have to go. We want to thank you all for being part of the conversation tonight on Plus Politics. Tomorrow, we're coming back with more conversations around the polity in Nigeria. I am Marianne Nicole. Do have a good evening.
Nigeria, by extension, Africa, is faced with a lot of challenges. The growing youth population with little engagement, that is a ticking time bomb. We are a blessed people with diverse culture and highly cerebral minds who have a lot to say. And yes, we are talking. It is important we drive the right conversation that informs, inspires, influences thoughts and action. If we say there's beauty in our diversity, then let us embrace our diverse culture. We must continue to courageously be the voice of transformation as we are the hope for the future. Yesterday's conversations shape today. What are you saying to shape your tomorrow? We know you have a lot to say, and we are here to hear you.
According to Plato, music gives a soul to the universe, wings to the mind, flight to the imagination, and life to everything. This is no surprise as the music industry is one of the most booming industries in Nigeria, as the motion pictures and music recording accounted for 730 billion naira of Nigeria's GDP in 2020. It has not always been this way, as the music industry has experienced a full turnaround from the days the boys wore baggy jeans, big gold chains, and oversized t-shirts. Let me take you down memory lanes of the good old days. Onyeka Onwenu, Iyogogo. Tony Tetsuila, My Car. Plantation Boys, Don't You Know?
Baby, don't you know that I really love you so? That I really love you so. Never let you go, and I never let you go. Sacred in my heart. Baby, don't you know?
Remedies, Shakomo. Maintain, catch hold.
I catch go.